So start at quarterback. Even though Bo Nix is making a push for it, Bo Nix making a little bit of a push for this bad boy the last couple of weeks.
I'll never give it up.
I'll never give up, especially because he's good right now.
He's actually winning, so yeah.
So Jayden Daniels obviously is the top quarterback here for the midseason rookie award. I did have Bo Nix number 2, honestly, because of how well he has been playing over the last couple of weeks. Genuinely, I did. I think he's playing well. We'll see what happens over the last couple of weeks here. Well, the next couple of weeks here, but then through the second half of the season, I should say. But for Nix in particular, I think he is improving in the areas where you really wanted him to. When it comes to throwing the ball deeper down the field, those 10 yards or deeper, like he is actually playing well. He had the 12th highest quarterback grade that we have in our system of quarterbacks who are pushing the ball 10 or more yards down the field. So I do want to give him his credit, but it's very clearly Jayden Daniels here for this award. For running back, I went with Bucky Irving. I have Bucky Irving here, and then I have Tyrone Tracy kind of coming up next. I think Tyrone Tracy would have been the next guy that I would have put in there. Also, I wanted to shout out Ray Davis. I think Ray Davis is playing well. Tight end, I'll do tight end first because it's not even a debate at all whatsoever. I don't even have really a second-place guy. It's Brock Bowers and then a country mile. But I did want to give a shout-out to Eric All, who I think is playing well for the Cincinnati Bengals. Wide receiver, though, this is where I think the debate really begins. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., and then certainly because of last week, means a lot to me, I have Marvin Harrison Jr. as my third wide receiver in here. So there are a couple of other wide receivers that I want to get into, but your skill position players, let's hear it. Who you got for this midseason all-rookie team?
Yeah, so I'll give you the right list now, and I've got Caleb Williams. I've got Caleb Williams at QB2. I obviously had Jayden Daniels as well.
Starting off in the
as my top QB. I picked Williams second. I mean, Daniels is sort of the obvious choice right now. I think everybody would have him at this point. I picked Williams second because when you consider context of situation, like I think Nix is actually, he's been one of the best protected quarterbacks in the league this season. And, I think Peyton is doing a pretty good job given the fact that they definitely have limited offensive personnel for sure. And I think he's played some of his best ball against teams that, didn't defend very well. Let's put it that way. And so I think that the context situation, I definitely think Nix has played a little bit better recently, but I mean, you would describe me as a hater for sure. Like, I don't know that I'm like close to buying in on the hype for Bo Nix.
We'll get you there. We'll get you there eventually. We'll get you to come on down.
Let's see how the second half of the season goes. Perhaps we'll do a show segment on it if I ever come over to your side with it. But I really do think Caleb Williams has not been like some unbelievable player this season. I also think there's a ton working against him. I think that offensive line is absolutely atrocious. I mean, you could literally see a situation in which they try to replace all 5 guys or at least start the process of replacing all 5 guys after the season. I mean, it has been that bad at times this year. So I think that's a huge part of the issue. I also don't really love a lot of the things they've done from a design perspective. I also think he's made a lot of bad plays too at different times through the year, but seeing him find some level of stability over the past month has been encouraging to me. They're very different quarterbacks and in very different systems and very different context, so it is really hard to compare and contrast them. But that's sort of why I went with Caleb, is that I just think he's creating and doing more for his team to elevate. Whereas Nix, it's like, can we rein him in enough to do like the things that we need just to like get a W this week? And he has done a little bit more than that recently, but that's the kind of difference I see between the two. I have Bucky Irving and then Tyrone Tracy as the backup. I actually would have been fine with either way on this one. Bucky has played more, but Tracy, I mean, you could definitely make case by the end of the year he might be RB1. Hopefully he's healthy. He got banged up Monday night, but he really is a dynamic player, and he's got a little more size, I think, and so you could perhaps see him become more of a workload where Bucky Irving's probably going to be sharing carries most of the year in Tampa Bay. Brock Bowers as the starting tight end, easy, but also at some point in the show we'll probably have a conversation about, is Bowers like already a top 5 to 7 tight end in the league, which is the second year in a row we would have that conversation about a tight end, which was unheard of before this Brock Bowers, Sam Laporta back-to-back.
Well, that's
very exciting.
That's all the conversations that we had of like, okay, well, you can't really draft a tight end high because they're not going to be worth it for you, right? Like, they're not going to be worth the set rookie contract that they'll be drafted at if you end up taking a tight end in the top 15, top 10, top 5. Like, we had to say to ourselves, there's no way the tight end is going to be worth the value that you're going to give them for the rookie contract. And now we have Sam Laporta and especially Brock Bowers, who it's like, okay, Brock Bowers was picked 13th in this draft. he would have been a good financial investment if he was picked 4th in this draft because of how well he is playing at that position.
And, as I mentioned, that pick, not only has he been good, but nobody needed that pick to be good in maybe NFL history more than the Raiders did, because A, they've got absolutely nothing in terms of weapons or building blocks offensively, and B, they just rolled the dice on a tight end in the first round when they did just drafted one high the year before. And so it was we can have that debate all day, but that him working out is absolutely massive for them. So then at wide receiver, I had Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., but I had as my third wide receiver, I had Ladd McConkey, and I had Marvin Harrison on my just missed group. Marvin Harrison, Xavier Worthy, and Keon Coleman were my second team wide receivers, basically. And the reason I picked McConkey over Harrison is just watching the all-22 of both of them each week. You could certainly make a case for Harrison. I think he's been awesome, especially when you consider the ball skill stuff has been awesome. But McConkey just being open all the freaking time and being able to run the vertical route tree and being able to make contested catches this season. To me, I've just seen way more to be excited about McConkey, even compared to where I was before, where I liked him before, than I have for Harrison, who I've been he's been basically what I expected him to be, but also is there ups, is he going to create separation at the highest levels in the league? What kind of a wide receiver is he going to be? Is he going to have to be used in specific ways? If you want to free him up, do you have to free him up a little bit more? He, I think, is still going to be a number one wide receiver. Absolutely awesome. I think he's having a really good rookie year. The talk from even a week ago was is Marvin Harrison, the bust and all this stuff, and he's better than so and so said. Brian Thomas better than so and so said. We're just jumping the gun way too much on that. This guy is so clearly very good, but I just have been really impressed with McConkey this season so far. If you're asking me again, we're saying this even a couple months from now, end of the season, next season, I'm absolutely going with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's still going to be the best or second best wide receiver in this class. But if you're just telling me right now, based on what I've seen so far this season, I mean, McConkey has had one of the quietest, awesome seasons in the league, and finally it broke out. I think the production on Sunday probably made people be like, oh, wow, but he's been on that level all season, and this has just been a painfully conservative offense that finally let Herbert air it out, and you saw the benefits of that to McConkey. But if you watch him on the all-22, he is open all the time, and he is fully capable of getting vertical and running that route tree as well. He has real speed that is translating to the field. So I have just been really, really impressed with him, and I'm glad the production's finally starting to show that.
It's so funny. McConkey was just only ever open at Georgia. He was only ever wide open in Georgia.
35 catches or something.
And then he goes to Senior Bowl, and guess what? Nobody can guard him. There were corners at the Senior Bowl that you could tell they didn't want to be a certain spot in the rotation for the one-on-one drills, because they were going to have to go up against McConkey, and they knew that McConkey one-on-one, no safety help, no nothing, was just going to put him in a blender. So the dude only got open
draft stock by himself.
Right. He only got open at Georgia, only got open in the Senior Bowl, and guess what? In the NFL, wow, I'm shocked. He's great. He's open. Now, if Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't sort of have the monster game that he does this past week, even if he would have had a normal game, I might have snuck McConkey in here. He was my next man up. And Keon Coleman.
McConkey had the monster game, Trevor.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's why I couldn't say, I couldn't say to myself, oh, if you just took away this week, because McConkey also had a monster week. So if you take away Marvin Harrison Jr.'s monster week, you take away McConkey's. But I think that this was really close for me, and ultimately I did go with Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't hate your call there. I will throw out another wide receiver, because I also had Keon Coleman in here, but you had Xavier Worthy as your sort of sixth name that you mentioned there. I would actually give Jalen Coker for the Carolina Panthers that sixth spot.
Oh, wow. Here. Let's go.
Dude, Jalen Coker, so undrafted wide receiver out of Holy Cross. He was a record breaker while he was at Holy Cross. He just, he was a small school competition kind of a player, really got overthought in this draft class. And his numbers are really good since he has gotten into the starting lineup for Carolina. He's got an 80.1 receiving grade. Yeah, these other receivers have more receiving yards than him, but 100% of the catchable passes that have been thrown his way have been caught. He's 3 for 4 on contested catch spots, and he is rising up when it comes to wide receiver threat percentage and how much he is getting used in this offense. So I actually think that Jalen Coker, sort of to your sort of to your Ladd McConkey, Marvin Harrison Jr. like argument, like if you're giving it to somebody right now for how they have played so far this season, you would give it to McConkey, not necessarily on who they're going to be moving forward, but I would give the nod of a second team spot to Jalen Coker over Xavier Worthy because I think that he deserves the recognition for what he's been able to do when he's gotten out there. So he would be my sixth receiver actually here.
I think you're definitely trying to show off by dream dropping Jalen Coker, but that's okay. That's fine. It's your show, so we can do that. No, Coker has been awesome. I actually mentioned him a couple weeks ago on the Read Optional podcast with Ollie, and I just said, like, I think the Panthers may have hit on a gem with Coker, just watching him. That was his first game that he really had played in. And since then, yeah, he only has, 12 catches on the season, I think, something like that.
It's not a lot yet.
Yeah. So the production's limited, the sample size of limited. I think even his snaps are lower. I would put probably other guys over him just based on that, including Jordan Whittington, who we've talked about. I actually think they could be pretty similar players. I have to see more of Coker as a blocker. The Panthers use him pretty differently than how Whittington's used by the Rams, where you really get to see his full game get shown off pretty much every week. But I would throw Whittington in that conversation if we're going to go there with guys who have like impressed and wowed in like smaller sample sizes. I still think Worthy, he's brought another dimension to this offense. He has made some really tough catches over the past couple weeks. He is consistently open. This offense is probably never going to run through one person other than perhaps Kelsey at times, but even that hasn't really been true this season. But I think just the dimension he adds to their offense is really helpful. And the fact that he hasn't just been a go ball 3 targets a game that we throw deep to him, but he's actually been a guy who can run horizontal concepts and keep their offensive structure in place, and you can use them in a few different ways, has been really helpful. They've been trying to find a guy like that, right? And they've, like the Tonys, the Hardmans, like those guys have not worked out and become the players that they hoped they would be. And now you've got an opportunity to have that guy with Worthy, I think, that can actually be what they hoped all these other guys were going to be before. And I think that can be a huge offense and has been a huge boost to them already. 3 touchdowns this season. And so I think there's more they can do with that. Honestly, if you told me the Chiefs, what do they have, the lowest ADOT as a passing offense in the entire NFL, I think, this season, if you told me that was going to be their offensive profile and that Xavier Worthy was still going to impress me in the first couple weeks, I would have said, wow, like he's more well-rounded than I thought he would be. And so I have been impressed with his ability to fit into a system that, hasn't really, there's been a deep ball here or there, but hasn't really like just said, oh, you're this guy for us, we're going to throw it to you deep, 3 to 5 times every single game, but has asked him to do a lot more. I've been impressed with that.
Yeah, and the Chiefs, shocking, I know. They're great at evolving players, developing players, right? It was the same conversation that we had with Rashee Rice when he was coming into the league, how he needed to look completely different than the player that he was at SMU, whether you liked him or not. If he was going to succeed at the NFL level, the Chiefs saw that, and they're putting him in good situations to succeed. It seems like that's the case with Xavier Worthy as well. Look, it's just admitting you don't know ball by not putting, Jalen Coker in there, but that's fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Not all of us can know ball. It's okay. It's not a big deal. Let's move on to.
Wait, should we talk about the fact that Rome Odunze wasn't in here for a second?
I think Rome's been fine. But
I do too.
There have been other wide receivers that have stood out, in my opinion, more over the last 8 weeks. That's simply all it is. So, yeah, that's my opinion of Rome. And I think that it was really nice that in this past game where the Bears were playing the Commanders, when the Commanders were actually when the Bears, were going on their run, I think it was that third down pass that was either a corner route or an out route to Rome Odunze that was beautiful. And you go, that's the connection we want to see. That's fantastic. It was a crucial moment in the game. It was when they needed it the most, and they were able to hook up and be great there. So I think the future is bright for Rome Odunze. There have just been so many wide receivers, I think, already that have been shining through these first 8 weeks a little brighter than he has.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not super concerned about him. I think he's going to be good. This offense has been a tricky fit, I think, for pretty much everybody, to be honest, so far amongst the Bears pass catchers. I think Xavier Legette's been solid as well. And the only wide receiver, the guys who've really struggled are the Jalen's, right? Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan, I think, have struggled a good bit this season. We'll see how McMillan operates as he gets more and more opportunities. But I think there's some adjustment to the league stuff. And then my guy, Jalen Polk, which is probably the surest sign that I don't know ball, is my evaluation on Polk was pretty high, and he has really struggled with that adjustment. I do still think the future could be bright for him, but those guys haven't done too much yet. They've kind of disappointed. Troy Franklin could be thrown into that mix as well. And then Adonai Mitchell's the one that has no production for us to put him on this team, but the tape has been really good. So fun wide receiver class so far. Lots of players. I mean, Luke McCaffrey's been solid. We haven't even mentioned everybody. Very hard to pick and narrow down to just a top 3 or a top 6 for this exercise.